It's buried in the mud of Passchendaele, the beaches of Normandy, the brutal hills of Korea, and in the dirt of Kandahar. It's the scars we see and the ones we sometimes don't. It's the grief of a nation etched into stone and in the faces of loved ones left behind.
This was his first deployment.
How do you define sacrifice? It's the courage of Canadians who confront the cruelty of war. With the bombs, the bullets, and the poison gas.
If you weren't frightened, you were a fool.
How do you mark sacrifice? It's the bright red poppy worn over our hearts, then left in blankets of gratitude. It's in the voices of children and the silence of 11 o'clock. And on this 100th anniversary of the first armistice, it's acknowledging all who've served, because this is the day to remember why we can never forget.
That was the familiar voice of actor R.H. Thompson, reminding us what we are doing today. He himself had two great uncles who served in the First World War. You are looking live at a shot of the National War Memorial here in the nation's capital in Ottawa. A chilly but sunny day on this Remembrance Day. People gathering, large crowds gathering here on November 11th, as they do every morning, bundled up and ready to pay tribute to those who have been lost, and particularly this year, to remember the 100th anniversary of the end of the First World War. It was on this day, 100 years ago, that the armistice was signed, which led eventually to the peace treaty to formally end the First World War. Good morning. I'm Rosemary Barton here in the nation's capital as we gather to remember, as I said, the 100th anniversary of the end of the First World War. More than 66,000 Canadians and Newfoundlanders died in that war. 172,000 others were wounded. And there will be a special commemoration of that on this day here. On November 11th in Ottawa. And joining me to help me with some of our coverage is Tim Cook. He is a historian at Canada's War Museum and has actually written a book just this year about the First World War and how the soldiers survived in the trenches, called The Secret History of Soldiers. Let's talk, though, about this particular anniversary. There are lots of anniversaries when we celebrate Remembrance Day, but this one seems to have a different meaning and seems really significant. So explain to Canadians why that is.
I think today's a very poignant day. 100 years, the end of the First World War, this war that forever changed world history and had such a tremendous impact on Canada. Of course, it's being marked around the world, and it's the war that destroyed 4 dynastic empires in Europe. It saw the rise of the Americans, of a superpower, but in Canada, really a profound effect on our country. 650,000 Canadians who served or were conscripted in this war, about 3,000 nurses as well. An incredible exertion. We're a country of 8 million people, and so the equivalent today would be about 3.5 million. They were citizen soldiers, they were farmers, clerks, students. They felt the call of empire, call of country. For some it was a sense of adventure, a sense of naivety, but they went overseas, they served, they found ways to keep fighting in unthinkable conditions. About 550,000 of those veterans came home and to a country that was forever changed by this terrible war.
I think you said to me it was 1 out of every 3 men, Canadian men, who served.
It was, and of course it affected everyone at home as well. It affected the women, children, the elderly. They saw their sons, their uncles, their fathers go off to war. It's the war that brought in income tax. It's the war that nearly tore the country apart along conscription lines. And so it's a mixed legacy. It's the war we stepped out onto the world stage, where Canada was recognized for standing shoulder to shoulder with Britain. But we did so as a broken country, as a country that grieved its fallen.
Okay, and Tim will be with us throughout this morning, but we have a couple of reporters as well helping us with our coverage, talking to some of the people in the crowds who have been gathering. David Cochran is one of them. David, over to you.
Yeah, hi, Rosie. It's a cold morning here in Ottawa, especially over here in the shade of the Prime Minister's office, but that has not stopped all of these people from bundling up and making their way down here to the National War Memorial to bear witness to this ceremony today. We've talked to people who have been here since before 8 o'clock this morning, wanting to make sure they could get a front row view of the ceremony. People who've come here from Winnipeg, from all around Ottawa, and right here a group of air cadets who have come from Amherst, Nova Scotia, driving here through the night to be here for the 100th anniversary of the end of the First World War. And a little bit later, we're going to talk to my friends Olivia and Jacob about what brings them here to Ottawa on this special day. Rosie?
All right, David, thanks for that. Hannah Thibodeau is in the crowds as well, and we will get to her in just a moment. We should point out that the crowds here for Remembrance Day in Ottawa have actually grown over the years, certainly over the years since I've been doing it. Typically about 35,000 people turn out. It went from a pretty low number in the 1980s to growing over time, certainly because of our participation in the war in Afghanistan, to now being a pretty regular, large turnout that never fails to surprise me, Tim. How many people come down here or make the journey from a different province to experience it here in the nation's capital?
It's a very powerful draw to be here, the seat of democracy, at this national monument. And it really is a remarkable day, a day steeped in history, in sorrow, in grief, but also pride. And it's quite like any other day. And I think many Canadians are touched by this. They have been taught this over the years. They have a family link, a grandfather, a great-grandfather, maybe a great-grandmother who served. It's a very powerful day for people, and I'm always amazed at the people who come out when it's chilly and cold, and to be here, and I think to bear witness.
And even when you don't have a link, I don't personally have a link myself, but you somehow feel it. I mean, it is an emotional day. It's certainly a patriotic day, and we'll get more to that. The Prime Minister not here today, but we'll show you some pictures of his time in France, where he spent the day and is still there right now. Hannah Thibodeau, though, is down near the War Memorial, and we'll go to her now. Hannah, good morning.
Hi, Rosie. Thank you so much. And I'm very fortunate every day to get to speak with the Chief of Defence Staff, Jonathan Vance, about Remembrance Day. And especially it's poignant this year, of course, because it's the 100-year anniversary of the end of the First World War.
Right.
When you think of that, what do you think about as being a soldier?
Well, a lot of things go through one's mind on a day like this. I certainly think about the 100 years since that war and the conflicts that continue today. I certainly think about the people we lost. You know, I had a grandfather in the war. My father served. And I think about the troops serving today. There's troops right now all around the world serving today who will become veterans in their own time and serve Canada bravely. And so it's kind of a sweep of history that I think about. And I think today I stand kind of in solidarity very strongly with the Silver Cross Mother. Anita represents mothers who've lost loved ones to suicide as a result of battlefield wounds that we can't see. And I think all of us proudly stand with her to recognize that phenomena, that horrible phenomena, and honor them as well.
Absolutely. That's definitely a good reminder of that as well. But today, too, there's something else significant happening. We have, for the first time, a Special Forces standing guard here at the Cenotaph. And mostly those soldiers are behind the scenes. How significant is it to have that today, too?
Well, I think it's very significant. It represents all of the uniformed services in the forces. They're proudly serving Canada. They're not all hidden, as one would expect special forces to be, and we're very proud of what they do, and they're proud of what they do. So it's quite fitting that they're at the Cenotaph because they serve too, and they should be seen to have served.
Jonathan Vance, Chief of Defence Staff, I want to thank you for taking the time today with us.
Always. Thanks, Hannah.
Rosie.
Thanks, Hannah. As I mentioned, the Prime Minister is not here today, and that's because he is in France to commemorate this 100th anniversary of the armistice. He spent yesterday in Vimy, of course, an important battleground for Canadians, and today has spent much of the day in Paris, and we'll show you some of those pictures now. There are some 60 world leaders representing states that fought in the First World War at this commemoration, including the American president, French, German, the Russian president also present, and many others. And the French president, Emmanuel Macron, actually gave a speech under the Arc de Triomphe today talking about how the traces of this war, the First World War, are never far away, he said. He also warned against the frailty of peace and told people to be careful of nationalism instead of patriotism. He called for patriotism over nationalism, which some thought might be a nod to Donald Trump. But that is where our Prime Minister is today, with so many other world leaders. And from there, he's actually going to attend the first ever Paris Peace Forum. And Tim, that, I guess, is a nod, obviously, to the anniversary of today, but also to the idea that multilateralism is perhaps under threat in a certain way, and I think that's what the French president's speech was about as well.
Yeah, I think so. Scholars call this commemorative diplomacy, and so it's the way to use commemorative events, often wars, to come together to perhaps reflect upon the past, but then of course the present is always there, and perhaps the future in this case as well. And I think the messaging that we have seen there, very much grounded in the terrible First World War, but symbolic acts, especially France and Germany coming together, re-signing the treaty.
Yeah, that was a
yesterday.
moving moment, yeah.
Yeah, in 2016, coming together at Verdun, that titanic battlefield fought between February and November of 1916, where some 750,000 Germans and French soldiers were killed. Right. Again, we saw that coming together. So these are opportunities, I think, to both use the past in the present, but also perhaps to think deeply about it and to call, I think quite rightly, for peace and peace initiatives.
Okay, well, let's go back down near the War Memorial, the cenotaph there. Hannah Thibodeau is with the Minister of National Defense, who is sort of standing in for the Prime Minister today. Hannah?
Thanks, Rosie. Yes, I am joined by the Minister of National Defense, Harjit Sajjan. I want to thank you for your service, first of all.
No, thank you.
And then also, again, I was just talking to the Chief of Defense Staff, talking about how important this year is because of the 100-year celebration of the end of the First World War. What do you think of when you look back at that?
Well, it is a very special Remembrance Day because of the 100th year of the armistice, and we as a nation have been defined by that in many different ways. But we want to remind Canadians it took a tremendous sacrifice for this. But it's also a constant reminder for us, like even today, we have our women and men in the Canadian Armed Forces deployed all over the world. And I just came back from Romania, where I got to visit our Air Task Force, who are doing tremendous work there. And let's not forget their families as well, who serve alongside them. And so it's a constant reminder to all of us that even today, we have our women and men serving us.
And we also have peacekeepers, and we have a current mission in Mali as well. And we have to think of the peacekeepers who are involved throughout the years as well.
It is, and when we talk about our peacekeepers or the work that our women and men do around the world, how important it is for us to be able to do this work, because World War I was a consequence where peace was not found, and there are no winners in any type of war. So when we look at the work that they do, I'm very proud of the resiliency and the thoughtfulness that they bring to the table in helping to not only reduce conflict, but also in many cases prevent it.
And you were saying it's special for you today because you also have your kids here.
It is. I think for any parent to be able to teach their children about the tremendous sacrifice, and I think it's, as I tell my kids, is Remembrance Day is about to answer the question why it's important to succeed, because that is the best way for us to honor the sacrifice of our fallen.
And also to remember, because if you don't remember, then things can continually happen.
Absolutely. Actually, my son, my daughter, who's been kind of grown up in this, I deployed when she was very young, and my son, since the 100th anniversary of Vimy, he's been actually writing small little books of the various battles and the sacrifice. And you forget, when they witness all this, they take it and articulate it in many different ways. And I'm very proud of the fact that Canadians and our children across Canada are honoring that sacrifice.
Thank you very much, Defense Minister Harjit Sajjan, and thank you for your service too.
Thank you.
Rosie.
Thanks for that, Hannah. Obviously, we're remembering those who paid the ultimate price today, but also those who have just participated. Those veterans, Canadian veterans, there are more than about 649,000 Canadian veterans as of March of this year, and obviously none left from that First World War. The last surviving veteran of the First World War was John Babcock, who died in 2010 at the age of 109. So it is largely now Afghan vets, Second World War vets, Korean vets who will be present here. But it also gives us a moment, obviously, to talk about those who died in such staggering numbers, as we talked about earlier. Since Confederation, more than 118,000 Canadians have made the ultimate sacrifice serving this country in uniform. I always find the numbers hard to understand, hard to digest, particularly with the World Wars, but it's sort of staggering.
It's staggering is the right word, I think. 66,000 killed from the First War, 45,000 killed from the Second World War. I think that's partially why those wars still haunt us.
Sure.
They still have a tremendous effect on us. I think of today, Remembrance Day. We're here in Ottawa, but of course across this country, Canadians are gathering at their local memorials. Those were erected for the most part in the 20s and 30s to the fallen of the First World War. Those 66,000 killed, a country of 8 million, just a staggering number. And they are sites of memory, they're sites of mourning, they are a place to gather, to reflect. Tears will be shed there. And I think we focus on the fallen, on the dead, but I think, as you've rightly said, the wounded who came back, wounded in body and mind. I think also of the next of kin, that official phrase that means the mothers, the fathers, the wives, the children who said goodbye to their loved ones, who went off to war, and in the 118,000 cases did not return over our history. This is a day to reflect on that service and sacrifice. We have a lot of space for our veterans and those who served. We should also make room, I think, for the mothers and for the fathers, for the children, for the wives, those who contributed as well from the home front.
Yeah, we often don't think about the damage, the lasting damage that was done to families and towns. I should tell people that things will officially get underway in about 15 minutes time at 10:30 Eastern here, and we will continue to check in with everybody. David Cochran is on the ground now and has someone for us to talk to. David.
Yeah, hi Rosie. I'm standing here with a cadet squadron from Amherst, Nova Scotia, who drove here on a bus through the night. This is Olivia and Jacob. Jacob's been doing a great job of manning the barricade here and letting veterans and VIPs through so they can take part of the ceremony. So Jacob, I want to start with you because you're a busy guy. What made you want to come here for this ceremony today?
It's the 100th anniversary, and it's the day that the war ended.
And how long have you been in, with the Air Cadets?
1.5 years, yeah.
Okay, and so what does Remembrance Day mean to you?
To remember the veterans that had died, and yeah.
Yeah, so and of course it is the 100th anniversary, and this is why you're here. Olivia is also driven from Amherst, Nova Scotia. So Olivia, what is it that made you want to come here to be in Ottawa today?
I wanted to see the ceremony in person because it's a totally different experience than seeing it through the screen. So I'm super excited to see it and see everything happening.
What in particular do you want to see today? What is the thing that they want to see the most?
I think seeing the Governor General would be pretty cool, but I don't know who's going to be here specifically, so I'm just kind of keeping my eye open, and everything seems pretty cool right now.
Why the Governor General in particular?
Because she's like she was an astronaut before she was the Governor General, which is really cool. So I think that's like just something like you can learn from her, just because like she was an astronaut and then she went into politics. So you can just change your idea of what you want to be or what you want to do, and it's like it can work.
All right, Olivia, Jacob, and the 146 Air Cadet Squadron. 156, there you go. That gave me on my toe.
154.
I will get this right the next time we come back and have a chat with them. Rosie, we're going to throw it back to you.
All right, tell them I'm glad they drove all that way, David. It is worth it. So we're just looking at some pictures of the veterans who are beginning to gather around the National War Memorial. Hundreds of them turn out as well, and as you know, the average age of the Second World War vet, I think somewhere in the early 90s, right at this stage. So people that turn out are bundled up and really committed to being here for this celebration of remembrance. The Veterans Parade will happen after, and you'll see 300 veterans march along Elgin and Wellington Street, which is just up and around the National War Memorial here in Ottawa. and will give us a chance to see people and pay tribute to them. It is also a very poignant moment later. There are, we saw there, some young people from New Brunswick, cadets in this case, but there are other young Canadians trying to understand and appreciate the sacrifices made in the war, including a group of high school students in Burnaby, British Columbia. And they've been trying to get a taste of what the trenches are like. Tim's recent book, he writes a lot about this, and we'll talk to him more about it. But what they've discovered, obviously, is that trench life was a pretty terrible reality. Our guide to this is 17-year-old Curtis Alsop.
Someone could just die right beside them and they just think of it as an everyday thing. If someone died next to me, I'd be pretty shocked and scared about that. We're here to show what World War I, like life in World War I was in the trenches.
So in the trenches it gets really tight, it's cold, it's wet, we have limited space, and for us taller people, we gotta stay lower or we'll get shot.
This is where they cook their food here. They would put fire under here and they cook their food there. And then their waste management system, this is where they go to the bathroom. Their privacy is just a simple little like sheet thing. They slept in here. They would have to sleep with their legs out because if this collapsed on top of them, someone would have to run and pull their legs out. The terrible conditions they lived in is so important to recognize that we can live freely and good now. So suffering happened in the past, so we can live good today.
One of the parts of your new book, Tim, that's so fascinating to me is as those young men, because they're very young men, were trying to cope with living in these really horrid living conditions in the trenches, they came up with ways to keep themselves going, whether it be naming the trenches streets from their towns, or other things. Give us a sense of what they were doing in those really wretched conditions.
Well, unbelievable conditions,
Yeah.
right? Sites of incredible violence and death, the dead jutting from the walls. And they developed many coping methods. I've read thousands and thousands of letters at the War Museum where I work, at the National Archives across this country, those powerful eyewitnesses. And they talked about dark humor, gallows humor.
Yeah.
And of course, I guess that makes sense,
Sure.
right? They're in these incredible places of stress and strain. What I didn't anticipate, though, was singing. They sang all day long. The songs of the war are so important. It extended to publishing newspapers in the trenches, newspapers for one another. They put on theater shows behind the lines. And so there is a great creative spirit among these young men. We know in our mind's eye, I think, of the trenches, of the rats, the lice, the unending death and destruction. And I don't want to minimize it, but these were young men struggling for life, struggling to survive and to get home. And they did find ways to cope for the most part. Now, many carried the scars of war, both physical and mental, but they were able to keep fighting. And I think there's a hidden history, a secret history to the soldiers and how they coped and endured. And it's not just the First World War. My book is about the First World War, but it could be about the Second World War, Korean War, to Afghanistan veterans today. They have their own unique society, and that hardens them, allows them to be resilient, and allows them to keep going.
Yeah, it's astonishing the way the human spirit can find ways to keep going in moments like that. Let's go back to look at some of the people gathering now around the National War Memorial. The memorial represents, of course, the sacrifice of all Canadians who have served this country. There are 22 figures on top of that memorial represent different members of the military and support services there. The figures at the top representing peace and freedom. And if you've been to Ottawa, and even if you haven't, it is sort of down the street from Parliament Hill a little bit. You can see part of the East Block on Parliament Hill under construction, under renovations. So it sits really in the middle of downtown Ottawa, where you can walk past it every day if you're coming downtown to work, and certainly it is right in the line of sight of politicians every day as they head into work. And the monument itself, Tim, has undergone changes over the years. There was a restoration recently.
That's right.
But and of course, other wars have been added to it over time.
Yeah, unveiled in May of 1939, ironically, only 5 months before the Second World War, this war to loss and grief, and we've added to it over the years. Its meaning has changed. It's taken on all the other wars we fought, and I think, of course, maybe the most powerful addition in 2000, the return of Canada's unknown soldier,
Yes.
who lies there, one of our own, We do not know his name, but he stands for all of those that we have lost.
And there are still something like 6,000 Canadian soldiers who have not been identified from the First World War, which is also remarkable. And again, the crowds certainly have been gathering since early this morning, probably since 9 o'clock, maybe before 9 o'clock this morning. And there's Perry Bellegarde, the National Chief of the FN, because there is a presence for Indigenous veterans as well. They also played a part. Another thing I learned in your book that I did not know, that Indigenous soldiers actually got the right to vote while they were off at war, even though they still didn't have the right here in Canada.
Yeah, some 4,000 Indigenous soldiers who served, Métis soldiers. They came from a country that we know was where they were considered wards of the state. And here they are serving overseas, serving with their white comrades. And of course it's English Canadians, French Canadians, New Canadians, Indigenous, all serving together. A very powerful event.
And then when they came back, of course, they still didn't have the right to vote.
No, they didn't. Many of those veterans empowered to fight for rights in the 20s and 30s, and it's a fight that continues to this day.
Wow. We'll show you actually a little bit of an Indigenous ceremony to honor those Indigenous veterans that happened a bit earlier today.
Are paying their respects to the
To me, mostly when the veterans came, because they have sacrificed a lot, and I'm just happy to see them.
For quite a while, a lot of both the United States and Canada didn't really acknowledge the contributions that our Aboriginal veterans, when they were serving. It's changed. There's more emphasis on having us included.
I think it's important that our students know that we have veterans in our community and the sacrifices that they have gone through.
And another special moment, an important moment really, that will be happening tonight is the Silver Cross Mother this year. Her name is Anita Santorini. I traveled to Winnipeg a few weeks ago to meet with her, and we heard the Chief of the Defence Staff telling Hannah why this is so important. And the Legion, who chooses this mother, Tim, does try to send a message sort of with these choices. And this year, it's a powerful one because Anita Santorini's son, Thomas Welch, he ended his own life 3 months after he got back from Afghanistan. But it took her, I think, 13 years to get the military to recognize that he had committed suicide because of his deployment. Mm-hmm. That is also something that has dramatically changed over time, understanding those hidden wounds that you're talking about.
Yeah, those hidden wounds that come from every war. And only recently, I think, have we really been paying attention and talking about this openly. Of course, in the First World War, known as shell shock, in the Second World War as battle stress. And it's not that Canadians didn't know that veterans came back changed. They understood that if you read newspapers, if you read accounts, but the care was limited, often geared more to physical wounds. Easier to treat, surprisingly, I guess, a missing arm or a missing leg, but not an invisible wound to the mind or to the soul. And so it has taken us time. I think we are better aware of this now, but I think we still have far to go. And today is a day of symbols, of icons. We think of the poppy and 2 minutes of silence and John McCrae's poem. And maybe we've added a new symbol to this, an open acknowledgement of the very terrible and long-lasting effects of PTSD on our serving personnel.
And as I said, I went to Winnipeg a few weeks ago to meet Anita and then talk about her son, Private Thomas Welch. She's a very brave person and a strong representative of the Silver Cross Mother. Here's a little bit of our conversation. Tell me what Thomas was like.
He was a very loving individual. He had a huge heart.
When you say he had a huge heart, how did that manifest itself?
He was protective of the people that he loved, especially the women that he loved. He took his sister to her prom.
Oh, really?
He escorted her in his formal uniform.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So why did he decide to join the military? Because it's not something that's in your family. It's not something you passed on to him. Where did that come from?
Thomas decided that he would join the military and he would do the 3 years, and then he would leave and he would have some experience, a foundation that he then could work towards becoming a police officer.
Was there something around 9/11 too, where he saw?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he signed up in the end of August 2001, and September 11th, we saw the news footage on television, and we were both shocked and horrified. And I said, Thomas, you don't have to stay in the military, you can leave. And I was crying. Just the thought of him going. And he came and he sat beside me. And I had Jacob in my arms, and he put his arms around me, and he said, well, Mom, they need me now more than ever.
When he came back, did you see him right away? Did you talk to him?
Well, he was sometimes crying in the phone calls, and sometimes angry. And I encouraged him to get help. And he said that there was no help available to him. I believed that Thomas suffered while he was in Afghanistan. And he came home, and he didn't receive the help that he needed. I knew that. I believed it. It was the truth that I knew in my heart. And somehow I just knew that one day the truth would come out.
And when you're sitting there on Remembrance Day in the cold in front of the cenotaph, what will you be thinking?
I'm honored to represent other mothers who've lost a son or daughter in service to their country. But I also think about the soldiers who have their boots on the ground right now. It's important to honor them. But since Thomas's death, I also especially think of the soldiers who have come home with wounds that we can't see, that they deal with every day.
He'd be proud of you.
I hope so.
Private Thomas Welch was 22 years old when he took his own life after returning from Afghanistan. You're looking at some of the people here that have made the trip to downtown Ottawa, some from around the country, as we've seen. David Cochrane talking to some younger Canadians, gathering on a chilly but thankfully very sunny day in Ottawa, where the ceremony will get underway very shortly as we see the special guests arriving. And again, they've made reference again today, just a moment ago, to the fact that this is a special commemoration, given that it is 100 years since the armistice, the end of the First World War, and that will be marked here today by special wreaths designed for the First World War. Let's go back into the crowds now. David Cochrane is standing by with the guests. David.
Hi, Rosemary. As you can tell by the hat on this young man, I found someone from your hometown. This is Nathan, who's flown in here from Winnipeg to be part of this ceremony today. Nathan, what made you want to come here today?
Well, I really wanted to see the Remembrance Day ceremony because ever since I was a little kid, I watched it at my cabin, and I decided that it would be really, really cool to see it myself with my own two eyes instead of through a camera.
How different is it to be here and see it, and the parade of veterans stuff just went by? How different is it to see it in person as opposed to on television?
Well, on television you get a much better view than here because they can see it from all the way up there, and they have multiple different cameras. But here you can, you have to look through the crowd. But I think it's just really cool to see them place the wreath and stuff like that.
What made you so interested in watching it every year and wanting to come here? What was it about November the 11th that made this day so special for you?
Well, I just like remembering the soldiers, and I know my great-grandfather was a soldier in World War II, so it's nice to remember him. And my grandfather was part of the Rifles, as far as I know, so I wanted to remember all of them. Luckily, they didn't die during the war, but I just really wanted to remember them, so it helps with the effect.
What was it like for you just a few minutes ago when we saw the big march of everyone parading by? You were all clapping and saying thank you, and what was that moment like for you, Nathan?
Well, I think it's really cool, and I love seeing how people devoted their lives to the country, and they were willing to die for our country. And I just want to remember them and thank them for all their service to our country.
Okay. All right, Nathan, thanks very much. And Rosie, I said he's from Winnipeg, and he was determined to show that he's Winnipeg tough, and he was not going to be cold in an Ottawa day because it's much colder where he comes from.
Yeah,
as you know.
That's right. It would take a lot to keep Winnipeggers away from a day like today. Thanks for that, David. Good to see young people out and trying to experience this as well. And you know, it's not just something you learn in school. It's a real thing that you can come and meet veterans and remember what's happened. Obviously, the National War Memorial, where we are, is just you know, a stone's throw away from Parliament Hill, and it was there on October 25th that the Dutch Prime Minister came and gave a speech inside the House of Commons, and there was a particularly poignant moment at that time as well. He paid tribute to, yes, all Canadian veterans who helped liberate the Netherlands, but in particular Don White. Here's what that looked like.
The Dutch feel a deep connection with the people of Canada, and with good reason. A reason that is embodied by one man who is with us here today, a veteran of the Royal Canadian Dragoons, who helped liberate the Netherlands from Nazi occupation, Mr. Don White.
Really special moment inside the House of Commons just last month when Don White got that, I mean, an incredible moment for, you know, he was there to represent everyone, but he got that special tribute.
Isn't that something special?
Yeah.
And we're down to about 35,000 Second World War veterans.
Wow.
We had 1.1 million almost. And so we're coming to a passing of the torch. We're going to lose that lived memory. And I think of that scene there. I think of the Canadians who are still welcomed back in the Netherlands and France as liberators that we were. Something to remember and to reflect upon, I think. What will happen when we lose our last Second World War veteran? Will the First World War and the Second World War fade from memory? I don't think they will. I think they're too important to our country. But we're going to have to work at that. We're going to have to continue to teach young people. We've seen many in the crowd here today, standing often beside 90-year-olds. I mean, isn't that something intergenerational? But this act of remembrance doesn't come easy. We have to teach it. We have to talk about it. We have to continue to honor and reflect. And we need to talk about the heroics, and we need to talk about the grief as well. All of that is a part of war. And I think that we're mature enough 100 years on now, since the end of the First World War, to talk about all of its war and all of its complexity.
And putting faces to it, obviously, or particular stories to war helps, I think, understand it and personalize it a little bit. Just take me back, because I got up very early this morning, and so I was actually awake at 11 o'clock a.m. European time, French time. And so I saw that moment happening.
Right.
Take me back to what happened 100 years ago when the armistice was signed on November 11th. What was actually happening at that moment?
Well, the Germans and the French and the Allies were moving towards that for several days, but I often think of the soldiers in the front lines, our Canadian soldiers in their trenches, in their slit trenches.
Who knew or didn't know?
They had rumors only. They really... Of course, there had been rumors almost from the start of the war that it would end, and everyone the next day was still going. Imagine what it was like on the 6th of November, the 7th. Canadians were dying on those days as they were still pushing forward. No one was certain if this war would actually end, the armistice, if it would be temporary, if the Germans were simply buying time to retreat.
Our special guest.
And so when the war actually ends on November 11th, it's quite a shock to everyone. There's great celebrations in all the communities, but for the soldiers at the front, most of them simply rose out of their trenches, looked around, and quite simply wondered how they had survived. They had buried so many of their comrades, especially in the 100 Days campaign, the series of battles that end the war, where the Canadian Corps played such a key role. I think for them it was a shock that they had survived.
And the armistice had to be renewed a number of times before we got to the actual peace treaty, which happened, I think, in July. Is that right?
That's right. The Treaty of Versailles officially ended the war, and it was a dark legacy in itself. Some thought it was too tough on Germany. Others said it was not tough enough. Of course, it would be used and misused and abused over time, especially by Adolf Hitler, to justify mobilizing his country again for another world war. So the legacy of that First World War, how you go to war, I think, is important to understand, and how you end wars has an impact on how, in fact, we remember them, or how they may, in fact, lead to other wars, or hopefully to peace.
And we were talking about how, particularly the First World War, it was such a large number of Canadians who were called into action, who volunteered themselves. Some, obviously were forced into the military. A century ago, though, the death of one soldier really changed a Newfoundland town forever, and this is a story that could be told across the country, more maybe particularly in Newfoundland. Lieutenant Stephen Norris was from Three Arms, and across that island, the loss of hundreds of young men like him would be felt for generations. Tonight, we will have a story where David Common visits Three Arms. Here's a little bit of what he found.
This is a journey back in time.
They say it's hard to find now because it's grown in.
Back a century, when lives and landscapes would be forever changed by war. How one battle would destroy a community of 140, thousands of kilometers from the front.
You can hardly believe it was like that, eh? Because all the trees are growing up.
Yeah.
How conflict would erase the town of Three Arms and force families away.
Just a little bit of a special story that David Common will bring us later on the National tonight. You'll also hear more of my interview with the Silver Cross mother, Anita Santorini. I have to say, probably one of the more difficult interviews I've had to do as a journalist. Something still very fresh in her mind, obviously, the suicide of her child, Private Thomas Welch. Let's go now to people gathering. We are expecting the VIPs, if you will, to arrive shortly. The Silver Cross mother, the Governor General, Judy, who also was overseas but has arrived back in order to be here for this ceremony. The Prime Minister's wife, Sophie Gregoire Trudeau, will be here. What you notice about days like today, as you know, Ottawa is not the busiest town on the best of days, but on Remembrance Day, it is eerily quiet. The streets, obviously, around the War Memorial are closed. And people are really taking the time, the quiet, to reflect on what today is really about. Many people, as you can see, bring their children down to participate, to see veterans, to listen, and to take those 2 minutes of silence to think about what has been lost. Those faces that you see there, Tim, I mean, you know, those are the people that we're out here to think about today.
Yeah, it is no small effort for someone who's 95 years old to come out to this event, to sit for 2 hours in the cold. Many of them feel compelled to march as well. I think of our peacekeeping veterans, our peacemaking veterans, veterans of Afghanistan. We often think of veterans being quite elderly, 60, 70, 80. Many of the veterans, of course, of Afghanistan now are quite young.
Yep.
And
Ladies and gentlemen,
we need to remember them too. This is
the Honorable
a day
Harjit
to be
Sajjan,
inclusive, I think. And
Defense.
as we've seen here, a very powerful day for those present, and I think for those watching in their own communities.
Well, you remind us again in your book that war is really the great equalizer. And so it is something that touches everyone, regardless of where you're from, you know, what your background is. It's something that everyone has to be treated the same. They're all fighting the same battle.
Justin Trudeau.
And again, just to remind people that the Prime Minister is overseas today. He has chosen to be with the some 60 other world leaders that are in Paris today to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the armistice. An important moment for him to commemorate with other world leaders, and they are moved on to a peace forum where they will discuss not only how to keep peace, but multilateralism in the world today. So he's at that now. His wife there, Sophie Gregoire Trudeau, arriving with the Minister of National Defense, himself a veteran.
They look great.
And you might see some pictures of these gentlemen in the back there in brown outfits. Those are, I guess, replications or replicants of First World War uniforms. That's sort of what they look like.
Yeah, wool uniforms with the leather jerkin on them. They can't be warm. What warmth was in 1916 is very different than today. This is the uniform we wore, and a similar one during the Second World War, and I think it's appropriate that they are there, I think, to represent those who are no longer with us. As you said, our last First World War veteran passing away in 2010. And yet, they live on, I think, in our imagination, live on in our history, and they live on in our society.
So we are now awaiting the arrival of the Governor General, and that's when the official ceremony will get underway. The Silver Cross Mother, Anita Santorini, will arrive first. You might notice that there is a Union Jack flying down here, and it flies during the Remembrance Day ceremony because Canada served under the Union flag before the Canadian flag existed, which is sort of very telling about what the First World War was like. I mean, that's sort of why it defines us, would you say? It became a part of our identity, our identity as Canadians.
Yeah, very much a part of the British Empire, of course. A Dominion in the British Empire in 1914, a Dominion still on November 11th, 1918. And yet, many historians have said the war changed us, that we fought together, we had our own heroes emerge from the war, and that we emerged as something different. And then the same occurred during the Second World War, and I think that's why we still mark these titanic events today.
Private Welch died on May 8, 2004, less than 3 months after returning from a mission in Afghanistan. He was the first Canadian soldier to die by suicide after serving in Afghanistan. His death was later deemed attributable to service. Private Welch was an infantryman and member of 3rd Battalion, the Royal Canadian Regiment, based in Petawawa, Ontario. Mesdames et Messieurs, la mère nationale de la Croix d'Argent, Madame Anita Santorini, arrive en compagnie de son époux, Monsieur Grant Palmer. Madame Santorini de Winnipeg, Manitoba, est la mère du soldat décédé Thomas Welch. Le soldat Welch est mort le 8 mai 2004.
That is Anita Santorini there with her husband, who, you know, one of the things that struck me about talking to Anita was how there was no bitterness, no animosity towards the military, even though for 13 years they did not recognize that her son, Thomas Welch, killed himself because of what happened to him in Afghanistan. She, in fact, feels that she has been reconnected to her military family, re-embraced by her military family. And part of what happened here with her son, and the reason it was recognized was because of some really excellent reporting by the Globe and Mail, but also because there were mothers like this, sort of quietly saying, no, he wasn't like this before, something happened. I mean, that to me is, it's remarkable that a mother would be able to get to that place where there'd be no bitterness, no pain towards the military, no blame,
A day like this, Remembrance Day, is to honor. It's also a day of closure, isn't it? Sure. I think it's closure for the nation, for our communities, for individuals, and in this case, one mother that you're talking about. It's an important event. Countries do this, I think, in many ways to reflect upon service and sacrifice, but we should not minimize the importance of closure here for Canadians across this country.
Yeah, and for Anita in particular, I know she, until this was officially recognized as part of Thomas's military deployment, she did not want to bury him. She did not want to finalize things, and now that has happened, she does feel like she can move on a little bit, particularly being recognized in this extraordinary way today, which is, I know, very meaningful for her. This, of course, is the Governor General, Judy Pett, arriving here today. She, of course, also holds the title of Commander-in-Chief of Canadian Armed Forces. And I think she's wearing a Navy uniform. Is she wearing am I right? Yes. Yep. There was some back and forth about which one she would wear. She's there with her son, Laurier Payette Flynn, who's 15, accompanying his mom on an important day for the Governor General, important day for the entire country. He was also there with her last year. The Governor General was actually in Vance, Belgium, just yesterday, I believe, so she's had a busy couple of days for commemoration events there. Vance, Belgium was also it was the Canadians who took back Vance, Belgium,
right.
and who love us. Everyone loves us there as well.
That's right. Yeah. Mons is an important historic town. It's where the British Army started the retreat in August of 1914, and it's where the Canadian Corps ended the war, capturing it, liberating the Belgians on that last day of the war. And Canadians are celebrated there. There are named events for Canadians there, named streets, geographical structures, memorials. And again, I think it's something worth remembering how our service in the two world wars, in the South African War, Korean War, peacemaking operations, continue to reverberate with other countries. It's one way for Canada to step out onto the world stage. It's not one we would choose, I think, in that case, but it still has an impact. And our allies overseas, France, Britain, Belgium, other countries continue to recognize us.
Here's the Governor General meeting with the Silver Cross mother and greeting other dignitaries and invited guests. Prime Minister's wife, Sophie Gregoire Trudeau, they're on her own this year. That's Peter Harder, the government representative in the Senate. Karen McCrimmon. Did release a message this morning to Canadians saying that she herself was very proud to be part of a military family. Called on Canadians to celebrate vets and military members as what she called national heroes. And here she is meeting some of those representatives that are at the National War Memorial today. Lots of young people here at this ceremony, Tim, which is always nice to see that people still have an understanding and a connection to it. As I mentioned earlier in the ceremony, the numbers have actually gone up over time, probably because of our because of the mission in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
But there seems to have been a reconnection to,
there is,
to this.
Yeah. I think you can actually connect it back to 1994, 1995, which was the 50th anniversary of the end of the Second World War. Thousands of Canadian veterans went back overseas. They were greeted as liberators. It was covered by CTV, CBC. That woke Canadians up, I think. The fact that we had veterans, thousands of veterans in our midst, we'd largely ignored them in the second half of the 20th century. And since then, I think you can see that resurgence. Certainly the mission in Afghanistan contributed to that as well. And it has become stronger and stronger. I also think that we teach this to our younger people.
We teach it better, I think, than we have in the past.
We
I
do.
mean, from my memory, anyway.
Yeah, I think we talk about individuals. We talk about the importance, the legacy, the effects. And certainly I have 3 girls, 14, 12, and 10. They've all learned about war. They have...
Well, they have a good dad to help them with
that.
They
may be a little different than some in what they learn. But, you know, their teachers have Remembrance Day ceremonies. And they memorize John McCrae's poem. And they make poppies. And I think that's an important part of what we do. How we hand down these stories to the next generation matters.
Just a couple more minutes before we hear the national anthem and the ceremony gets underway, but I did just want to make mention of George Price, who Nala had featured this week on the National, this Canadian who was killed 2 minutes before the end of the First World War. And reading some of the things in your book and other places, that was a fear for a lot of the soldiers, that they wouldn't make it and that they would get to the end and they would be one of the last to die.
I remember I wrote a book on the Second World War, Fight to the Finish, a number of books on the Second World War. 100 Canadians died in the first week of May as we were moving towards. I thought, the sorrow, the grief, those families at home who probably received the death telegrams after the war. I think of Private Price's family, the last Canadian to die on the Western Front, who himself represents a tragic figure as well. These are the stories of war. These are the stories that we should continue to talk about.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
Ils ne vieilliront pas comme nous, qui
They
leur
shall grow
avons
not old,
survécu.
as we that are left grow old.
Ils ne connaîtront jamais
Age
l'outrage,
shall not weary
ni
them,
le poids des années.
nor the years condemn.
Quand viendra l'heure du crépuscule,
At the going down
et
of the
celle de
sun,
l'aurore,
and in the
nous
morning,
nous souviendrons d'eux.
we will remember them.
Je me rappelle, ils ne vieilliront pas comme nous autres, ils ne sont pas accaparés de là. Quand le soleil se couche et quand il se lève,
When the
on
sun
va se rappeler d'eux
rises
autres,
and when
on
it
va se rappeler
sets,
d'eux autres.
we will remember them always.
We gather today on this hallowed ground on which is entered Canada's unknown soldier to remember all those who made the ultimate sacrifice. On the centennial of the signing of the armistice, we honor those whose names we know and those whose names are known to God alone. Dans le respect des croyances individuelles,
I invite all of you wishing to join me in prayer based on your individual beliefs to now turn your hearts to the God of your faith, or to take this moment for personal reflection.
Please join me in prayer or in a moment of personal reflection. Loving God, we give thanks for those who have given their lives in the service of justice and peace. We know that peace is more than tolerating one another. It is recognizing ourselves in others and realizing that we are all on the path of life together. Lord of justice and peace, enable us to lay down our own weapons of exclusion, intolerance, hatred, and strife. Make us instruments of your peace, that we may seek reconciliation in our world. As we remember those who returned from past wars with injuries, both visible and invisible, inspire us to care for all military personnel who are wounded in body, mind, and soul. Help us to have compassion for our brothers and sisters who, for reasons known and unknown, have considered or attempted suicide. May we be compassionate for the families and friends impacted by these tragedies. Nous nous souvenons des familles, des amis,
We remember the
des
families,
collègues
friends,
et du personnel soignant,
comrades, and
de
caregivers
ceux et celles qui, en temps
of
de
those
guerre et de
who,
paix,
in time of war
ont
and
fait le
peace,
sacrifice de leur vie
have made
pour
the
restaurer
ultimate
la paix.
sacrifice to restore
Sois leur
peace.
soutien et leur force
Be their refuge
dans
and
les
their
moments de
strength
deuil.
in moments of grief.
Nous prions pour tous les
We
militaires
pray for
déployés
all
autour du
military
monde,
members who are deployed around the
dévoués
world
au mieux-être de l'humanité
in dedication to the
et à la
welfare of
promotion
humanity
de la justice
and the
et de la
preservation
paix.
of justice and peace.
Inspire-leur de donner
Inspire
le meilleur
them
d'eux-mêmes
to give the best of
pour la cause
themselves
de la liberté.
for the cause of freedom.
Nous prions pour notre souveraine,
We pray for our
Sa
Sovereign
Majesté
Lady,
Élisabeth II,
Her
Reine
Majesty
du
Elizabeth
Canada,
II, Queen of Canada,
pour la gouverneure générale,
for the Governor General,
le Premier ministre,
the Prime Minister,
le ministre de la Défense nationale,
our Chief of the Defense Staff,
le chef d'état-major de la Défense et toutes les
and
personnes en
all
autorité.
in authority,
Que la sagesse
that
et
they
la
may have the
compassion
wisdom
les
and
accompagnent
compassion
dans leurs fonctions.
to meet the call of their office.
On this centennial year of the armistice, we remember and pay respects to our fallen by answering their call to peace. Dans cette espérance,
In sure
te prions.
and certain hope we pray. Amen.
Please be seated. Veuillez vous asseoir. Ladies and gentlemen, the Vice-Regal Party will now begin placing their wreaths. There will also be a special wreath placed in memory of all Canadians who served in the First World War. We honor their service and sacrifice 100 years later, fulfilling our obligation to never forget. Mesdames et messieurs, le cortège vice-royal déposera maintenant les couronnes. Il y aura aussi une couronne spéciale qui sera déposée à la mémoire des Canadiens et Canadiennes qui ont servi durant la Première Guerre mondiale. 100 ans plus tard, nous rendons hommage à leur service et à leur sacrifice, remplissant notre devoir de ne jamais oublier.
is where the dignitaries obviously will lay a wreath to represent either the people of Canada, the mothers of Canada, Parliament. And you may notice those wreaths are markedly different than usual. Usually they are all red. These resemble wreaths that were used in post-First World War commemorations of 1919. Again, to pay special tribute to the 100th anniversary of the armistice being marked today. Chief of the Defense Staff, Jonathan Vance. This wreath here being presented by young people, chosen young people of Canada. Of course, so many who died in the First World War were very young themselves.
They
Just young
were.
men.
They're supposed to be between the ages of 18 and 45, but I found about 20,000 who were underage. Found a 14-year-old who lies buried on the Western Front, a 12-year-old who was shot in the leg, and a 10-year-old who made it overseas.
And this last wreath being laid by the Royal Canadian Legion, who actually puts on the Remembrance Day ceremony each year. It's not a government-sponsored event, it's really run by the Legion to make sure that they pay tribute to the veterans and to the war without any particular political overtone.
Ladies and gentlemen, God save the Queen. Mesdames et messieurs, que Dieu protège la reine.
Parade, attention!
We come together today on this hallowed ground to remember and bear witness.
We are gathered in this sacred space, sanctified via remembrance and eternally sanctified by the precious blood spilled here. We are here to remember, to energetically express our appreciation and our gratitude to our veterans. Please join with me to express our appreciation to our veterans by saying the words, "We are grateful," when you hear the word "therefore." We remember, therefore we are grateful. We remember the supreme sacrifice so many beloved Canadians made and were ready to make on land, in the air, at sea, the dead, the wounded, the survivors, the war-bereaved, men and women, Anglophones, Francophones, First Nation members, people of many ethnic and religious communities. Therefore, we are grateful. We remember they're putting their lives on hold and at risk in order to eliminate tyranny and defend liberty. Younger veterans and older veterans who meet today in mutual respect and admiration as partners in the battle against evil. Therefore, we are grateful. We remember they're fighting our fight to assure freedom and dignity for everyone, deserving to be celebrated, applauded, and eternally appreciated as authentic heroes. Therefore, we are grateful. We remember their bravery, their dignity, their selflessness, their embrace of Canada, their devotion to global freedom and peacekeeping that defines them. They're carrying our values into challenging situations. Therefore, we are grateful. We remember their knowing that even if they return whole in body, they will still be confronted with looming issues such as PTSD, yet still risking their future on our behalf. Therefore, we are grateful. We remember the unifying inspiration of selflessness and dedication, reminding us of what being Canadian is all about. Therefore, we are grateful. May those who died be remembered lovingly. May those who were injured be healed in body and spirit. May those who served and continue to serve live out their lives in a world free of terror and suffused with tranquility, the type of world they fought to create and to preserve. How do we show gratitude to our veterans? verily our first responders to evil, by embracing them, by hugging them, by expressing our appreciation to every veteran we meet in all places and at all times, by teaching our children how much in their debt we always will be. On this, the 100th anniversary of the end of the First World War, we reflect on the notion of a world war. We ask, if the world can be at war, is it not possible for the world to be at peace? It is not only possible, it is terribly necessary. But not peace that is merely the absence of war. We gather today yearning for a world that is truly at peace. Peace that is highlighted by respect, inclusion, cooperation, helpfulness, kindness, and enveloping appreciation. That is the ultimate goal of our remembrance, a world of harmony. The goal is lofty, the commitment to that goal unrelenting, and our hope to reach that goal unwavering. Our veterans continue to fight for a better world. Let us carry that fight forward by suffocating evil through our pervading goodness, by encountering each other in the spirit of friendship, by flooding the world with good deeds. Let us continue to make Canada worthy of their dedication. May our profound embrace of remembrance and gratitude be a crowning glory for our veterans and our country. God bless our veterans. God bless our troops. God bless all those who stand on guard, peace champions all here and abroad. God bless Canada. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, the march-off will soon commence. Our veterans will lead the parade, followed by the Royal Military College of Canada, members of the Royal Canadian Navy, the Canadian Army, and the Royal Canadian Air Force, HMCS Carleton, Governor-General's Foot Guards, Cameron Highlanders of Ottawa, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, cadets from the Navy, Army, and Air Cadet organizations, and the Navy League Cadets of Canada, and the 30th Field Regiment, Royal Canadian Artillery. Mesdames et messieurs,
and that concludes the official part of the Remembrance Day ceremony. Now the dignitaries and invited guests will say their goodbyes, and the march will begin. And the march is so poignant because there's a portion of it that is veterans, and as we talked about earlier, Tim, so many of them much older veterans who still feel compelled to come out. Doesn't matter what the weather is, the temperature is, doesn't matter how they're feeling. These guys and gals have seen much worse, so they make it out to do this march and to get what becomes a really special moment of applause for them.
I think it is. I work at the Canadian War Museum, as you know, and we have veterans who volunteer there, and I get to see this every day. Young people interacting with Second World War veterans, Korean War veterans, peacekeepers, peacemakers. It's a chance to interact with history, these eyewitnesses to history. And I think that this march, we will see those who are quite aged and those who are quite young. And I think for those who are quite young, boy, it'll be an experience for them to march beside these older warriors, those who have served, those who have seen things that they can only imagine, and be a very powerful experience. And of course, for everyone here, this is one of the highlights, to offer a thanks in form of cheering perhaps, a clapping, and perhaps to simply stand at attention and to watch as they march past.
And there are, I should say, there are a lot of people here. I'm not sure if you can see up behind the War Memorial there, but that little sort of hill that goes up onto Parliament Hill is completely covered with dozens and dozens of people. So lots of people, perhaps because it's a Sunday, more people have come downtown to Ottawa to be part of the ceremony and to be part of the applause. And as the dignitaries leave, let's go back into the crowd where David Cochrane is with R.H. Thompson, who was, of course, the poetic voice that kicked off our coverage here this morning, David.
Yeah, hi, Rosemary. I'm here with R.H. Thompson. As you said, you were the narration to open the show. You were the first voice we heard on this special. This is a special day for you, not just because it's the 100th anniversary of the end of the First World War, but because it's an important milestone for a project you've worked on called theworldremembers.org. Tell us about that project, R.H.
Well, we thought at the end, the centenary of World War I, we thought we've always remembered them as THEM. And for 100 years, we remember THEM, and we got a little hot under the collar that why aren't we calling them by their names? So we said, okay, let's name them. Why don't we name everyone who was killed in the First World War, and also tell the families when the names will be shown here on the GCC in Toronto, on the Toronto City Hall, at RMC, and it's in Dresden, it's in the United States, it's all across Canada, so schools. So we're saying, to remember them, you should actually call them out by name, and then you should tell the family when their relative's name will appear on the display.
So this is a multi-platform, multimedia project. So there's the website which catalogs the names of everyone who died, not just Canadian soldiers, but every country involved.
If we are Canada, and Canada is all communities, that means we're Italian Canadians, we're Pakistani Canadians, we're Slovenian Canadians, French Canadians, German Canadians, Turk. So we name them as well. We make sure we put the Canadian name in pride of place, and it's up longer, but on the side you'll see a name from France, Britain, New Zealand, Turkey, Slovenia, Italy, as many countries as I could persuade to join.
I was looking at the webpage, and the collection of pictures and names and history is quite extensive, but you mentioned being shown on buildings like ones here in Ottawa. There's a multimedia display where you project the name of the soldier. Tell us about that aspect of it.
So we finally got funding, because I didn't get funding to do big displays across the country, but I did get funding, great, from Heritage Canada and BAC to do a big display here on the GCC. So Martin Conboy and I put up this 45-foot screen, and for 61 nights, we projected 16,000 names a night, one by one, appearing. And families would come at 3 o'clock in the morning because they knew that their great-great-uncle's name would appear. And they stood there and appeared. It's also the War Museum during the day, so we ran nighttime displays and daytime displays as well.
It's an exhaustive project just to catalog all of the names and to go through the archives and build it over the 4 years of the war. What prompted you to do this?
Why are we remembering them as THEM? Do you have an answer to that?
We will remember them, as we say, and you wanted to put the individual names to the them.
I don't think that goes far enough. I don't think on the centenary, I don't think it's enough to say THEM. Why not Robert? Why not Louis? Why not Emile? Why not Sanjay? Why not all of them? They deserve it, don't they? I mean, they did lose their lives for the country. Should we not actually name them? It seems so baseline that what we should do. And what's so amazing is some people are just not interested. Like, well, why aren't you interested? They lost their lives. Let's name them. So we did.
Okay. All right, Rosemary, that's R.H. Thompson. We talked to some young people here today. We're here to learn and remember. He's here to teach and remember. Back to you.
Thanks, David. I remember when he started that project and he was projecting, I think just on the War Memorial when he started doing it, Tim. And there is a significance to that. As we were talking about before, the reason you can feel connected, even if you didn't have a family member who is a veteran or someone who died at war, is because you start to learn about people.
That's right.
And that's part of the power of naming them.
Yeah, I think the naming is important, isn't it? These Canadians who lost their lives, of course, they're on memorials across our country. We're focusing here today on Ottawa, but I think of the 4,000 memorials in every town, every city, every village. They have the names of the fallen. And there are wonderful educational programs done by our teachers across this country, generally under the name Lest We Forget. And they try to find those names, and through the Library Archives Canada, our national archives, those young people can investigate, can understand, and can research those people from their community. And I've talked to many young people. It's a very powerful act, I think. And I think for our country, the idea of reclaiming the names. These were soldiers often who went overseas, as we know, over 18,000 in the First War, whose bodies were destroyed. They have no grave. They are on the Vimy Memorial. They are on the Menin Gate. And they are on our memorials across the country. So yes, I think the naming is important. And I've looked around here, the screens, and before the show, they were projecting the names of faces of individuals as well. And I think perhaps someday in the near future, maybe we will be able to find photographs for all of our fallen. to put on some digital display for Canadians to access this at all time. And I think of all of the communities across the country, all those families who have that black and white photo of a great uncle or a great grandmother who served, not always who fell, but simply who served. Wouldn't it be something to bring those together at some point so that we could have the names but also the faces?
And here's that moment you and I were talking about here where the vets, some of them, you know, pretty elderly, getting that applause from the crowd for things they did, you know, maybe decades ago.
Yes.
But still getting recognized on this day.
Yeah.
I mean, even the cheering, it's a really lovely moment.
It is. I think it's a somber day for us. We heard very powerful speeches, but there's also a celebratory aspect here, or perhaps commemoration is a better word. But it's a chance for us to recognize and to mark. And I think of all, you know, just looking at these images here, this is a very powerful display, I think, and it's one day in the year when we do this. It's a day grounded in history, but it's also a day of pageantry, as we see here, and of respect. I see a lot of respect today.
Yeah, and patriotism, which isn't something you often get out of Canadians, but you sure see it today. Hannah Thibodeau is in the crowd with a guest. Hannah.
Hi, Rosie. You know, this is my favorite part of every Remembrance Day. I get to chat with the veterans. This is Joe Quinn and his grandson, Darcy Hare, who brought him out for the Remembrance Day service. Joe Quinn served in Korea. So, Mr. Quinn, tell us what it was like to be here today.
It's a pleasure to be here today, to see everybody here and to know that people still remember what it was all about. And I'm really proud to see the young people home today.
That was a big moment for you, seeing all the young people?
Yes, because I'm sure some didn't know what was going on.
Now give a little taste of what it was like being a medic in Korea.
Well, it was a good job, a fun job, not a good job, but we had a job we had to do, and we lived in the bunkers. And we look after the injured. Yeah. And if there was at night, there had to be a battle at night. In the morning, I'd sort them out and send them some on helicopter back to Nash, or the rest we sent to the field hospital.
And that was in 1952. You went.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. That was at the big battle of the 355, which they called.
Right.
And that was one of the big battles.
How important is it for young people, you mentioned young people, to remember the Korean War too?
Well, they don't have any idea. Today with technology, they don't know how you ring a telephone. They don't know how to add. It's all so much different today. They said, oh, you have to be 16 and gone. No, today they stay home at 35.
What do you mean by that?
Well, they live at home. We were out in the bush. We were doing out in the bush.
Oh, you say they live at home longer?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Now, what would be the message you would have for young people today?
I think they should do what they want. They should have a good trade and a good job, and then if they want to join the forces, do so.
And then when it comes today, we're celebrating and remembering the end of the First World War. Do you think of that a lot? As a soldier?
Yeah, but it's as there's another different war. We have done some really rough training in some of that stuff that they used to do. It's much different with technology today. It's so much different. So much different.
So much different.
You don't have the mud. You don't have the holes and so on as they did over there.
Well, I want to thank you for your time today. We appreciate your service, and we appreciate you being here with us.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Rosie.
Hey, Hannah, before you let Joe go, ask Joe how old he is, if he'll tell me how old he is.
Oh, yeah, he'll tell you how old he is. He's proud of it.
That's right.
Go ahead. Rosie's asking.
How old I'm? 97.
All right. He's looking good. 97. Tell him. He's looking good,
Rosie
Hannah.
Rosie says you're looking good for 97.
Thanks, Rosie.
I'm not sure what I've started here, but thank you for that, Hannah. Thanks, Joe. I appreciate it. So Hannah bringing us one of her very, she always finds vets who are have lots to say. And this was a Korean vet, which we haven't talked a lot about.
Right.
And Joe's 97.
97.
So he too, sort of at the upper end of what some of the vets are right now. And what do Canadians probably don't remember a lot about that war either, even if it was much closer?
Yeah, I think
time.
if we've talked a lot about the First World War today and about the Second World War and modern peacekeeping, the Korean War has largely been forgotten by Canadians. Of course, about 30,000 Canadians served from 1950 to 1953 and continued to serve beyond that. And we had about 500 killed in that war. So it's part of our history. We were fighting.
Why do you think we don't talk about it as much, recognize it as much?
I think it's smaller.
Yeah.
The numbers who served, of course, 1.1 million in the Second World War. And that was a total war. The Korean War was not. Canadians largely went on with their lives in that time period. But it's a part of that Cold War that went hot. And I think my colleague, Dr. Andrew Birch, has this amazing research project where he has begun to investigate all of the fallen soldiers and how they died. And he's created a digital map that I think is available now. And this is a chance, I think, to talk about those veterans as well. 250,000 who also served as peacekeepers. We should remember them serving in a time of tremendous strain. Many people have forgotten the Cold War, the fear there, the anxiety, and these Canadians serving around the world. So we've had a chance today to talk about a lot of our veterans from various wars and conflicts, and I think that's an important thing that we've been doing.
No, I agree, 100%. And David Cochran is, as we watch these incredible pictures here of people marching out, David Cochran is in the crowd again with the guests. David.
Yeah, hi Rosie. I think one of the last times we spoke, I had someone from your hometown. Well, I found Graham and April from my home province. They've come all the way here from Corner Brook, Newfoundland, to stand here in the cold with thousands of people. Graham, you're a long way from home today. What made you want to come to Ottawa for this?
Well, coming to Ottawa has always been something I wanted to do personally. April and I both celebrate or go to remembrance ceremonies back home in Newfoundland and Labrador. And it's something that we wanted to do on a national level, where this is the 100th anniversary back home, the 100th anniversary of World War I, and with the Beaumont Hamel and Memorial Day back home in Newfoundland and Labrador is something that takes place in July 1st. And again, it's significant to the two of us.
Yeah, April, Graham just mentioned it there. Like, this is the 100th anniversary of the end of the First World War. Newfoundland was its own country at that point in time. The story of the Newfoundland Regiment is a tragic one that we always mark in the morning on Canada Day and again on November 11th. How meaningful is it for you in terms of that part of this event to be here for this?
Well, for myself, I was an Army cadet for 8 years. I really would like to thank some of the veterans in Newfoundland and also in the rest of the country. I mean, without you guys, we wouldn't have the freedoms we have today, and I mean, it means everything. This service was such an emotional one, and I would love to come back, and I really urge everybody to come to the National War Memorial here in Ottawa. Sorry,
it's a very emotional period,
and
it's
such a great time.
Period,
yeah, thank you.
So, Graham, you mentioned you had, when we were talking earlier, your family served. Some family history. What can you quickly tell us about that?
My grandfather, Charles Sutton, served in World War II. He was in the Royal Navy, and he served with the Royal Navy. So that's my personal connection.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. Graham and April, thank you so much for coming there. Rosemary, there you go. People here from all over the country, your hometown, near my hometown, a very special day here in the nation's capital.
Yeah, and it's so great to see that people want to travel all the way to Ottawa, even if there are special ceremonies in their own towns and villages, as Tim and I have been talking about. This one is sort of next level and is pretty special if you can make it down here. Hannah has a guest with her now. Hannah.
Yeah, thanks, Rosie. And John Goheen traveled from British Columbia to be here today.
That's right, from Port Coquitlam, BC.
Yeah, and you laid a wreath today. Your grandfather served in the First World War, and we have people behind us dressed in costume.
Yeah, he would look like that. Yes, he was with the 26th Battalion. This is collar dog right there. He was like so many, he lied about his age, so on his 17th birthday, a couple of weeks after, he was in the Army, and on his 18th birthday, he was already on the front line, and his war lasted about 2.5 weeks. He was severely wounded, and probably saved his life ultimately, but that put him out of the war, and he was only 18 years old.
Why did you come to lay a wreath here today?
Well, I was asked by Dominion Command of the Royal Canadian Legion to lay a wreath on behalf of all the Great War veterans and those who never came home, and of course my grandfather was part of that. It was important for just so many families in this country. You think of 1 out of 3 men in military age put on a uniform, and of those about 60,000 didn't come home, and those that did, 173,000 were wounded. So many families in this country were affected, and that legacy is with us today. It's something that the least we can do is to remember the sacrifice and what was done for freedom.
And you think of how many served in the First World War, over 600 and something thousand.
620,000 were in uniform, and of those, about 420 got over the UK, and about 345,000 served on the Western Front. About 7 out of every 10 were either killed or wounded. So it's staggering.
And our population was only about 8 million at that
just under 8 million at the time. So I don't think Canadians today realize the magnitude of the effort that Canada put forth, this tiny little country. And as often said, they punched above their weight throughout the war. Amazing story and uniquely Canadian.
Absolutely. John Cohen, I want to thank you for your time today.
My pleasure. Good day.
Rosie.
Thanks for that, Hannah. And John alluded to something that you briefly touched on, Tim, and that is that so many people lied about their age to enroll in the military. What was it about the call to duty at the time for the First World War that made people want to join so desperately?
Well, through research, we found about 20,000 underage soldiers, as we were saying before, 17, 16, 15, all the way to 10 years old. It's quite remarkable what compelled them to go. Yeah. For some, it was a belief in the cause for king and country, like older Canadians who served, a sense of adventure, naivety, I think a chance to wear the uniform, all of that. I think why soldiers enlist is one thing. How they continue to fight quite another. In my book, The Secret History of Soldiers, I look at that. How could they keep going? How could they survive?
Because they were such young men who had experienced very little.
Yeah.
And then to be thrust into that.
Yeah. Of course, their parents could write to the forces to have them pulled out. Yeah. And in fact, there are these gut-wrenching letters I found at the National Archives of mothers and fathers pleading to let their son leave the firing line. Sometimes it happened, sometimes it didn't. Sometimes those young guys wanted to keep serving and fighting, and they were often very good soldiers. And so these are some of the stories that are coming out today, and I think it's a chance for us to reflect upon the service, the sacrifice, our history. This is a day very much steeped in history, even though it's connected to the present, and it still has tremendous relevance with so many thousands of Canadians serving around the world. It's quite a unique day.
Yeah, it is. And to that end, let's go to David Cochran, who's down in the crowd with his final thoughts on what this day's been like for him.
Yeah, Rosie, the thing that struck out for me today was just how many young people came from across the country to be here today, going from Olivia and Jacob, those young cadets we spoke with right off the top of the show, to the 12-year-old fella, Nathan, from your hometown of Winnipeg, who wanted to be here to mark the 100th anniversary of the end of the First World War. Just the level of awareness they have about the historic conflicts, and also the awareness about the more modern conflicts, and just how important it was for them to be here to remember, to give thanks, to see it with their own eyes, and just how far they were willing to travel at such a young age to stand in this cold for, let's face it, several hours, which is difficult. We saw young cadets standing at attention, having to be escorted off for medical help because of the conditions, but they persevered. They lined up at 8 o'clock in the morning because this day meant so much to them, and it's great to see that from such young Canadians.
Yep, totally agree with you, David. Thank you, and thanks for your coverage today. Hannah now is down by the War Memorial. Hannah.
Hi, Rosie. I just love having this as a part of my job, to be here every Remembrance Day. And I don't know if you can hear the crowd right now, but there are people who served, and they are giving them cheers as they walk by. And that's what I love the best, is having a chance to talk to those veterans. Even if we didn't get to get them on camera, I get a chance to go up and speak with a lot of them. And one of them was a woman named Elsa. She's 96, and she served in World War II, the Second World War. And she just wanted people to know, don't forget, there are a lot of women who served and helped out as well. She decided at the last minute she wanted to march in the parade, and rightfully so, because they wanted to cheer her.
Okay, Hannah Thibodeau, thank you for your coverage today as well. Do appreciate it. My thanks to David Cochran, to Hannah Thibodeau, And of course to Tim Cook, who's been helping me along with all his expertise. Helps to have a historian at your side when you're doing coverage like this. Appreciate it as always, Tim. Thanks to the crew, who's been working very hard in cold weather to bring you this special coverage too. If you want to see the broadcast again, you can see it at 3 p.m. Eastern on CBC News Network and on our YouTube channel. I'll be back tonight for a special edition of The National from here, from the War Memorial. I'll bring you more of my interview with this year's Silver Cross mother. On behalf of myself and everyone for CBC News, thank you for watching our special coverage of Remembrance Day. Privileged to be here. I'm Rosemary Barton.
It's Sunday, November 11th. Hello, I'm Wendy Mesley. A CBC Radio Canada exclusive asks, did Monsanto mislead Health Canada about a product's possible links to cancer? And do old rules keeping big money out of Canadian politics even work in the age of